Okay, welcome everyone to our webinar on how to qualify for the SBA's 8A program. My name is Christina Kunkel, and I am the Program Director for the Northern California Procurement Technical Assistance Center. I'm just going to speak briefly about the services of the PTAC and the SBDC programs before our procurement specialist, Christina Jones, begins her presentation. So the Norcal PTAC is a program of the Norcal SBDC. The PTAC and the SBDC are both federally funded and hosted by Humboldt State University Sponsored Programs Foundation up in Arcata, California. The Norcal PTAC is funded to provide free one-on-one counseling services on procurement topics to businesses in Del Norte, Humboldt, Mendocino, Shasta, Siskiyou, Solano, and Trinity counties, as shown in the map on your left in green. These county restrictions are determined by the federal definitions of economically distressed counties. There are about 100 other PTACs across the US. The Norcal SBDC is shown here on the map to the right in red, along with the other SBDCs in California. SBDCs provide free one-on-one counseling services on more general business topics. Their service area slightly overlaps the PTAC service area from the Oregon border in Del Norte County all the way down the coast to the Bay Area and down to Santa Cruz County. So the Norcal PTAC provides 3 core services, all of which are free to clients within the PTAC service area. The first is one-on-one counseling. Our experienced procurement specialists can help you with SAM registrations, certifications, GSA schedules, DUNS numbers, crafting capability statements, and any other government contracting topics. We can help you understand where your business fits in the government marketplace and how to market yourself. Your local SBDC can also provide free one-on-one counseling, but on more general business topics like how to start a business, how to write a business plan, how to get a loan, and more. Second, we provide free webinars like this one and in-person workshops on government contracting topics. We'll show you a list at the end of this presentation of our upcoming events. These webinars and workshops are open to anyone regardless of your location. And finally, we can also set those up within our service area with a free bid matching service with daily access to federal, state, and local opportunities. We also post local opportunities on our Facebook page, so please make sure you like us. To apply for Norcal PTAC services, visit norcalptac.org and click on the big green button on the front page. And don't hesitate to call me if you have any questions about our eligibility, about your eligibility for our services. My direct phone number will be listed later on this presentation, but it's 707-826-3922. To apply for SBDC services, click on the blue link on this slide to find your nearest SBDC. And as I said earlier, the slide deck and a recording will be emailed to you after the presentation. So you'll be able to click on any links that are live in this presentation. Just a quick housekeeping note, you're all muted to avoid distractions in the background. If you have any questions during the presentation, please click on the chat button on the bottom of the screen and you'll send a message to Christina, the presenter. She'll have about 10 minutes at the end to answer your questions. So I am pleased to welcome Norcal PTAC Procurement Specialist, Christina Jones.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Christina. Again, I'm Christina Jones, and I'm a procurement specialist with the Norcal PTAC. And today, I'm going to be talking to you in detail about the 8A program, whether or not you qualify, and if you do qualify, why you should pursue a certification and how it can benefit you. So here are our objectives for today. We will start with covering the FAR regulation, which is CFR is Code of Federal Regulations, Part 124, which has jurisdiction over the 8A program or outlines the rules. Then we'll move into a general program overview, just a quick snapshot of what the minimum requirements are to qualify for the certification. And then we'll talk specifically about eligibility requirements as they relate to the FAR. So we'll go through the 8 sections in the FAR of Part 124 that apply to eligibility. Then we'll move through the 8A application process. What we'll do there is start with looking at some of the forms that you will see, that you will complete. Actually, you'll complete those online, but the forms, we'll review them first to show you kind of what you're looking at, what you need to gather. Then we'll talk about maintaining certification, requirements in order to maintain the certification over the time you're within the program. And then we'll circle back and talk about the Office of Business Development and their priorities, and how that benefits you, and the role of your business opportunity specialist once you're in the program, and how that can also benefit you. And finally, the steps for success, what you need to do once certified, and how can you benefit again from the program. So a bit of history: the 8A Business Development Program is based on Section 8A and 7J of the Small Business Act. Section 8A specifically empowers the SBA to enter into contracts with the government, U.S. government agencies. So basically, the SBA acts as the actual contractor. And Section B of the Act allows the SBA to arrange for performance of these contracts by subcontracting to qualified, socially and economically disadvantaged small business concerns like yourself if you are an 8A participant. Section 7J of the Act, authorizes the SBA to enter into grants, cooperative agreements, and contracts with public and private organizations in order to pay all or part of the cost for technical or management assistance. And as you can see here, the purpose of the program is to assist eligible small disadvantaged business concerns like yourself to help you compete in the American economy on a fair playing field. And the mission of the program is to provide managerial, technical, and procurement assistance. So let's look at a quick overview of the program. It was designed, of course, to help small socially and economically disadvantaged businesses compete on a fair playing field. These here are the minimum requirements, and we'll get into a little more depth, as much depth as we can get in a 1-hour webinar. But as far as what the qualifications are, but in general, a quick snapshot is 51% owned and controlled by a socially and economically disadvantaged individual. Must be in business for at least 2 years, and we'll talk about what specifically that looks like beyond being in business for 2 years, but other requirements that go along with that. Managing the firm full-time, demonstrating potential for success is another important one. They're all important, but another one that we will really, we'll go through how you can demonstrate that potential for success. Be a good character. There's 9 years to this program, and there's a mentor-protege program. So why? What are the benefits of 8A? Obviously, there's, as I mentioned, through the 7J program, there's a business development and training that's offered to you, also to socially and economically disadvantaged firms. There's one of the main points that is attractive to a lot of businesses are the contract support through 8A set-asides and sole source opportunities. So contracts that are set aside only for 8A certified firms, which means those are the only ones that can compete for those opportunities. And sole source, even better, meaning no competition. The contract is sole sourced directly to you, not competed among other firms. And as you can see, there's a threshold up to $7 million for manufacturing and up to $4 million for other industries. However, under FAR 124.506, there's also a sole source can be given above thresholds when a contract opportunity exceeds the threshold and there is not a reasonable expectation that at least 2 eligible 8A participants will submit offers at a fair price. So there are opportunities to exceed the general thresholds of sole source opportunities. The SBA mentor program I mentioned before, which is also, there's also the new all small mentor protege program, which is mentored after the SBA's, the 8A program. Joint venture agreements, and one that's not talked about that much is the Texas Facilities Commission Surplus Property Program. And what that is as an active 8A firm, you're eligible to purchase office supplies, for example, equipment, vehicles, even things like planes they have at a discounted rate. And there's a link to that website at the end of this presentation in the resources and tools slide. So the program is 9 years. It's a 9-year commitment, basically. And there are 2 stages of the program, starting with the developmental stage. So years 1 through 4, you're a little more dependent, probably on the 8A contracts, meaning the sole source and the set-asides, as you develop your business and grow your business. Through years 5 through 9, the transitional stage, you are expected to kind of mix it up, make sure that you are utilizing the business skills you've learned and the contracts you've obtained to seek opportunities outside of the 8A program, more commercial opportunities, also more opportunities with the federal government that are not 8A set-asides. And at the end of the 9-year term, you graduate. So let's go into specifics on the eligibility requirements. And these are outlined, again, in 13 CFR, so the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 124. There are 8 general requirements that must be met. However, you can always apply, and you may have circumstances that allow you to still qualify if you don't meet all these qualifications, but these are the general qualifications in general that must be met. So requirement 1 is an easy one, U.S. citizenship. So you must be a citizen, and if you're born outside of the U.S., you must provide, passport or naturalization papers. Requirement number 2 is regarding the size standard. So to be considered small, you're classified by your North American Industry Classification System code. And what that is basically the largest that your company can be and still qualify as a small business for federal government programs. And that is determined by either average annual receipts, your sales revenue, there's a maximum there, or the average number of employees that your firm has. So if you have questions, if you think you are particularly close as far as in your NAICS category for size standards, there's also a link in the resources and tools slide where you can review the size standard chart. Requirement number 3 is social disadvantage. So you must be a U.S. citizen and a member of one of the following presumed groups. So they're all listed here. It's pretty, those are automatically considered socially disadvantaged. However, if you are not a member of one of these designated groups, there is more evidence that you must provide in order to be considered. There is a possibility, but there is, again, additional requirements that you must meet in order to prove that you're eligible. And here are some examples of experiences that will be considered. So education, for example, you were denied equal access to an institution of higher education. You were excluded from a social and professional association, something to that extent. For employment, perhaps you were treated unfairly in hiring, not given the promotion opportunities of colleagues, other aspects of professional advancement. So these are just some examples. These are not stating that these are all the requirements that you meet, or if you meet this, you will definitely be certified, but these are just some examples of things that the SBA will consider. Also business history, if you've had unequal access to credit or capital, unequal treatment and opportunities for government contracts, these again are some other things that may qualify you as socially disadvantaged. Just remember this point, second from the bottom, the disadvantage must be chronic and substantial, so it can't be a one-time incident. So that's also another important aspect to note. And also just want to note that for women-owned small businesses, of course, the SBA now has the Women-Owned Small Business Certification and the EDO, the Economically Disadvantaged Women-Owned Small Business Certification. So you can, for instance, a white female, you may apply for a women-owned small business instead of 8A. However, if you would like to proceed with 8A, these are the requirements that you would need to meet. Requirement 4 is economic disadvantage. So socially disadvantaged persons whose ability to compete has been impaired by diminished capital and credit opportunities. So there's no longer a narrative required. It says submission of a narrative, but there's no longer a narrative required. It's based on a review of your assets, your cash, bonuses, value of the company stock received instead of cash, basically the fair market value of all your assets, whether they're encumbered or not, with a few exceptions, which I'll cover here. So personal net worth, this is how it's calculated. So at the time of that application, your personal net worth may not exceed $250,000. And these are the exclusions listed here. Equity in your primary residence, equity in a business, in your business, individual retirement accounts. So this really is referring to IRAs that, say for instance, you have a retirement account that you can't access without large penalties to receive the funds. So they understand that you really don't have access to those funds. That is excluded. Income that is from an S Corp, LLC, or partnership is also excluded, which leads to the adjusted net worth. Okay? And once you're in the 8A program, the net worth can go up to a maximum of $750,000. Requirement 5 is ownership. There's a minimum 51%, as with most certifications, unconditional and direct ownership. In the case of 8A, by a socially and economically disadvantaged applicant or applicants. So you can't, two of you, if two own the company and are socially and economically disadvantaged, you both may apply, or only one of you with the majority ownership may apply. So there are exceptions for concerns owned by these entities: Indian tribes, Alaska Natives, Native Hawaiian, or CDCs. And you can see the FAR regulations here that apply to those entities as well. Okay, control and management. You must hold the position of the president, or basically the highest position in the firm. You must be the highest compensated individual in the firm, have the ability to hire and fire. So you need to show that you're actually in control of the firm and you're also managing it. And we will review from the application the control and management section, which actually gives you a better picture of this. Requirement 7 is potential for success, and I see many companies a little confused about this. So you have to have 2 years in business, and some people may stop there and think, well, I've been in business for 2 years. But what it is that you need to be in business for 2 years with some revenue for your business. So on your tax returns, your business tax returns, it should show revenue earned within the past 2 years. However, there is a waiver, and this is where others may be thinking that it's automatic, but a waiver requires additional paperwork and a review and acceptance by the SBA. And so these are some things that you must prove. Substantial demonstration that you have business management experience, you have capital in order to support this business, could be credit lines, could be loans. You have a record of successful performance on contracts. And they will ask for proof of that, as well as letters of reference from your clients, and the ability to obtain personnel, facilities, equipment, and so forth in order to support your business. So what that looks like is they are looking for financial capability, technical capability, managerial, and qualifications. So all of these things are required to be proven in order for potential for success in order to receive a waiver. Requirement 8, the last requirement, are other eligibility requirements. You demonstrate good character. And by that refers to criminal history, and also paying your federal obligations, your tax returns, paying any taxes that you owe. Just a reminder, it's a one-time eligibility, or actually I'm just stating it's a thing for the first time. The 9-year program is a one-time eligibility. So you cannot, say, hey, my son works for the business, and after I complete the program, he's going to start an 8A firm, and then we're just going to basically share the developed during the presentation, the context that we have developed during our tenure in the program with our son, and so then he can continue on. It's a one-time eligibility. There are questions that are written in the application in order to prevent that. So it's one time for each firm in order to give that firm a leg up. Brokers are not allowed, so if you are a middleman, you'll probably not be eligible for the for the certification. And anything the SBA deems necessary to establish eligibility. I want to point that out. So during the underwriting process, the analysts will review things possibly on the internet or other information research that they find about your company. And if it doesn't match up with what's on your application, there may be additional documentation required. So there are, just know that anything the SBA deems necessary can be requested. All right, so let's look at the 8A application process. And we'll start by looking through some of the forms, and just so you can, again, be aware of what types of questions that you will be responsible for answering and what type of documentation you will need to provide. And then we'll look at the actual online submission. Okay, so before you begin, gather items from the checklist. And just remember, it's not all inclusive, kind of like what I mentioned on the previous slide. If there are other things or answers from your questions, for one, or other research or information that comes to light, that the SBA will reserve the right to ask for additional documentation or clarification. And so that leads to really the second point, that you will likely receive a clarification letter once your application is received with questions about information you provided or requests for additional documents, or both. So make sure that the documents requiring a signature are dated as close to the time of submission as possible, and that the information on Form 413, which is your personal financial statement, should be no older than 30 days old. Okay. And Form 1010 should be completed by each individual. We'll go over that has 10% ownership or more, or we'll talk about that more specifically. And then just remember that the SBA has a goal of processing within 90 days of receipt of a complete application. And that means submission of additional information, documentation that they've requested, and it's a goal and not a guarantee. So it depends on the backlog of the agency you submit it to, the processing, the analyst. So there are a lot of factors that are involved, but that is the goal. So steps for certification. First, review the 8A business, the SBA site on 8A business development. We can't cover everything here. They have a complete list of all of the requirements, the background of the program, things you should consider, which leads to the next point, which is complete the 8A suitability tool. Make sure that the program is suitable for you and you are suitable to apply. And that will help you kind of flesh out if you want to move forward with gathering the supporting documentation and applying for certification. And then you're going to, after you've gathered everything you need, you're going to access the general login system. And we'll talk about how to do that in a couple of slides. But first, actually, you will want to update your SAM registration, for instance, if you want to add a NAICS code, for instance, or change point of contacts, because some of the information from SAM will be populated into your 8A application. And step 5, complete and submit the online 8A application, which leads to uploading the supporting documentation, which is a change from last fall, which is instead of submitting the package, the paper package to the SBA, in order to streamline and make sure the process moves along a little faster, you can upload your documents now to certified.sba.gov. And so there's a link here, and there's also a link on the resources and tools slide towards the end of the webinar where you can access that. And just remember that the online application plus the document submission upload makes a complete package. So once you submit the application, it is not on the GLS login, GLS portal. It is not complete until you upload your documents on the certified.sba.gov site. So here, if you don't have a general login system account, that's what GLS stands for, then you'll need to create one. And so you just enter all your basic information here, and there will be, again, a link for this in order to where to access this. And then what you'll do is after you create a profile, you will attach it to the certification that you want to pursue. So here where I'm pointing my arrow, the 8A Small Disadvantaged Business Management Information System is what we want to choose in order to access the 8A portal. We also, I haven't highlighted down here on HubZone, but we'll also want to select our business from the profile, but once we click on 8A, this will show. And then you'll choose your business and make sure it is linked to that 8A application. And then you would enter the system, and then you would choose, as you can see here, 8A Business Development, which is not available until you attach it to your profile. Okay, now we're going to look at the forms. We're going to look at the forms, and then we'll go to looking at the portal. So first off, this is the first page of the 1010 that you will see, and you can see this link here is for in order to access the actual application directly. It'll also be a link again at the back where you can access all the forms, but here's a link to access just the 1010 business application. So there are some disclaimers here. There's some things that you should make sure you do before you apply regarding if you needed a DUNS or a tax ID number or things of that sort. There are some disclaimers here, so read over this. And then move on to section 1, which is the business profile. This is your general company information. Pretty self-explanatory. The one thing that you'll need to do is make sure that, or you want to make sure of, is that you are a for-profit business, because only for-profit businesses are allowed to be certified as 8A firms. And just for those of you, any of you who are a part of any of the business concerns owned by a Native American, National Hawaiian, CDC, and so forth, there are additional forms, and those forms can also be accessed through the link on the resources tool and tools slide below, but also they're referenced here. Okay, so all of the pages that we're going through of the application are really referring back, just a reminder, to the FAR. So part 124, those 8 sections that we went through, these questions are designed to make sure that you comply. So, but I also want to point out, if anything is answered in these questions for this particular application, questions 1 through 20, if there are any yes answers, then you will be required to potentially provide additional documents, an explanation, or both. It's not to say that you don't qualify, but just there's some clarification needed. So not to discourage you from applying, but just that know that there may be additional documents needed. For instance, like number 1, are you delinquent in filing any applicable business tax returns? Maybe the answer is yes, but maybe you've set up an agreement with the IRS, so that would meet the requirement that you are actually taking care of that obligation. And also I want to point out in this top section here, business and management administration, you could see, in this case, I just set it up like a husband and wife so that both financial statements can appear. But the husband owns 51% of the firm, and he devotes 80 hours to the business, which establishes his management and control. He's spending a lot of time, full-time with the business, and he is the one that's claiming social and economic disadvantage. Now, even if the wife is Hispanic, say for instance they're both Hispanic, she's not required to claim social and economic disadvantage. With him as the 51% owner, he can do it, or they could both do it if they want to both be considered socially and economically disadvantaged. And these are just more application questions, the 1 through 20 that we referenced on the previous slide. As far as any yes answers will require additional documentation and clarification. Here's a 1010 individual. This is for each individual owner of the firm or applicant that owns more than 10% of the firm. So you can see the requirements for completing this are up here at the top. So basic individual information, about the individual, and then there are 12 questions here that must be answered. Any yes answers to this will again require supporting documentation and clarification. Okay, and this is also part still of the 1010 individual. And all persons signing this form, as I mentioned, will be required to have a personal resume. Here you're supporting the fact that you have the capability, the experience with this business, and it's basically documented on your resume. So your education, your technical training, and your employment experience that supports this business is what's listed on your personal resume. Copies of tax returns, 912, which we'll review in a moment, and other questions which are required as far as just to make sure that, again, I talked about possibly, I talked about, transferring the business or trying to transfer the firm over to a family member. That wouldn't work. But really what I'm talking about here is transferring personal assets. So trying to reduce your personal net worth by transferring assets to someone else. This SBA frowns upon that. If that is something, of course, to intentionally reduce your assets. Maybe there were good reasons why you transferred assets, not to say there weren't, but just that there will be more documentation required if the answer to that question is yes. Okay, here's the 912, which is Statement of Personal History. And here where the SBA is just confirming, for instance, your address, date of birth, also whether or not you were, a party to any crimes or indictment, for instance, or things like that. And if so, you will have to do a fingerprint card, and also there will be, some additional underwriting that will be done to determine eligibility. This form is required if you use a representative, say for instance, you use a business development rep to obtain federal contracts, and perhaps you pay them a commission based on how much business they bring in. The SBA requires disclosure on that, so you need to complete this form if that's the case. If not, list NA. This refers to just confirming that, for as far as you know, or that you're confirming actually that you are not presently debarred, suspended, and so forth, indicted. Some of the things that are listed on the 912 form, just making sure that you are not, we're not a party to any of that. And here's a personal financial statement, and this can, this requires, really making sure the numbers line up. And by what that I mean is, of course, you can go through all of your documentation, which you've gathered prior to completing this form, and just write down the dollar amounts. However, things, for instance, like real estate, which is listed here, say, for instance, you say, well, my house is valued at, $600,000. Okay, that's what you're saying, you know, in your neighborhood, that's what the house is going for. However, if you look on a site like Zillow.com or something like that, it shows it's valued at 550. That is a value that you want to list here, what can be verified. And also that value should match up to what's listed on the properties on the next page, which we'll cover in a second. So just making sure that these numbers actually line up with what you're listing on the portal will make it easier. And so here's what I'm referring to here on the real estate section. For instance, your primary residence is property A, so we want to list that there. And so your present market value would be based on, you know, what's listed out there as far as what the value of your home is. And then if you have any rental properties, they would be B and C. And remember, those will count, the equity on those will count towards your personal net worth. It won't count for your primary residence, but you're still required to disclose it. Also, any other income you'll list here in section 1, any notes payable, stocks, and bonds. And if anything in any of these sections exceeds the number of lines that are listed, you'll need to add an additional sheet of paper and just, you know, list the same columns and list out the information and reference back to this document so they can be tied together. Okay, and this is the third and final page of the financial statement, which references, like we talked about before, if there are any unpaid taxes, you know, you will detail how you are dealing with that, or you have an arrangement and so forth, and providing a copy of that actual IRS document. Other personal property and other assets, this is where you kind of outline those on section 5 on page 1 is where you list a dollar amount, and here's where you outline other personal property and assets that you have. Life insurance, what they're really looking for is your cash surrender value. So if you have a term policy, you still need to list it here, but as far as on the life insurance section on cash value would be 0 on page 1 of the financial statement. And just remember that if you are married, you and your spouse will need to complete one of these, and the assets should be split in half. With the exception of possibly a 401k, maybe your spouse has a 401k and you don't have access to that, that is theirs, then that will be listed only on their statement. Also, just note that if the SBA deems by adding the value of your spouse's assets onto your financial statement that you will exceed the personal net worth, they may ask for additional documentation, hard copies, bank statements, and things like that. So just remember that. Okay, now, assuming that we've logged into the GLS system, I'm taking us back a few slides when we logged in. Now, once we click on 8A Business Development Center, it takes us into the portal. And so at the top will be listed your company name. And also there's a disclaimer here, or actually just a reminder that you don't have to be certified in the 8A program in order to self-certify for the woman-owned or the economically disadvantaged woman-owned business program. So if you're interested in those programs, you can go to certified.sba.gov to apply. So when you first log in, these are the forms you'll see: the 1010, Form 1623, Form 1790, and the Form 4506T, which is your tax transcript form. And what will happen is as you complete those, additional forms that are needed will be added. So for instance, here's a list of what we just saw on the first page. It's really one long page, but had to break it up into 2. So your Form 1010, which is your business information, 1623, which we reviewed, anything about any certification that you're not debarred, suspended, and so forth. Form 1790, that whether or not you paid representatives in connection with obtaining federal contracts, and then your 4506T. And then from there, assuming you've completed these, the system will pre-populate additional forms that you will need. So, for example, if you're married and you're not legally separated, it will require a financial statement for your spouse, like we just covered. So that will be added here. the two financial statements. In this case, there are two owners. In the example we're using, there's two 912s, and then a 4506T transcript for the company, and then one for the husband and wife. So those forms will be added right now. All of these are X's because the information is not complete. As you complete it, they will turn to the green checks. So you need to have all green checks before you are ready to submit. And also just want to point out these on the toolbar at the top, which will also be at the toolbar at the bottom as well. But you can always, as you put information, verify completeness, and it will tell you what is wrong. So for instance, for the equity in the residence, you list, like I mentioned, like a $600,000. But the dollar amounts that you listed below for each property, the equity totals don't add up to that. So it'll point out that you need to correct that. That's just one example. So use the Verify Completeness button to find out what needs correction, if anything. This is also a continuation of the 1010 form. And just a reminder, like I said, that the system will generate the additional forms that are necessary. And then if you change the name here, for instance, then it's going to, mix up your pre-generated data. It's a potential to mix it up. So it's just also a reminder that it is pre-generating based on what you enter in the system. Okay, so we didn't go through every single page of the application. A lot of it we did go through by looking at the paper submissions because I wanted you to be familiar with the questions and so forth that you will be asked. But assuming you've gone through the portal and have completed everything, you will get to this point where you will review, print, sign, and submit online. So you'll need to upload your supporting documentation. If you could see from number 6 here that there is an electronic, it'll lead you to the certified.sba.gov where you can actually upload the supporting documentation. You're required to print an authorization form and include that in your upload and check off here that you've completed that step. So these things will open up to you. They're not active now because our application is not complete, but these things will open up as needed, as you're ready for them. And just remember that to be on the lookout once you do submit both your online submission of your application as well as uploaded your supporting documentation, that you will very likely receive a clarification letter from the SBA. So be on the lookout for that. There are fairly short windows to reply to these requests for information. So again, be ready for that. And here is, like I say, the certified.sba.gov where you can upload your documents, your supporting documentation for your application. So I just outlined here, this is a change as of August 24th in the FAR, Part 124, that requires all 8A applications along with supporting documentation be filed electronically now, which is actually, a great benefit to you and, keeps down paperwork, streamlines the process, more similar to, what they're doing as well with GSA schedules, for instance. Everything is uploaded in the portal. Guidance to submitting an 8A application. This is a very current document as far as what's required to upload. So please click on this link and look at the checklist that they have here, as well as how to name the documents, the way you should name the documents so that it's clear to the analyst what you've uploaded. And if you have any problems with using this website, there's a user guide, a link for that as well. So once you're approved, what happens next? So you're assigned a business opportunity specialist. That's done before you receive your congratulations letter. And then you'll receive a letter saying, congratulations, you've been admitted to the program, effective whatever date it is, and that will be your annual anniversary every year. And this is your business opportunity specialist. And also, you will be required to submit an 8A business plan, which can be completed on Form 1010C, which again, you can access through our resources and tools slide towards the end. And this business plan is a little bit different from your typical business plan. It's designed for the 8A program, but there are elements that are similar to your business plan. So, but look for, they have specific questions that you must answer. And again, you must submit this as soon as possible. Actually, you're not eligible for any 8A contracts until they've received this, acknowledged receipt. And then an on-site orientation will be conducted. And I say orientation, not site visit, because you've already been accepted into the program. This is a visit from your business opportunity specialist and maybe someone else from the SBA to kind of get you familiar with the program, welcome you, go over the rules and things like that, what will be required of you, what can they offer you while in this 9-year program. Maintaining certification. All 8A firms are going to submit an annual update, which is Form 1450, every year. And you'll submit that also online through the portal. It will be listed at the top, I believe, in front of the 1010 Form 1450. So you can complete that online and submit that online. There is some supporting documentation that you'll need to submit as well. And just know that it's due no later than 1 month after the anniversary. So if your anniversary, the date that your congratulations letter says that welcome to the program, effective October 9th, by November 9th, the following month, you need to submit your annual update each year. And just a reminder that always report any changes that impact your certification. So changes in business structure, for example, would be something that you would want to report to the SBA, regardless of whether or not it's time for your annual update. And just to circle back about the importance of the 8A program and why you should apply if you can qualify, is the Office of Business Development has created these priorities and has met or is on their way to meeting many of them. For instance, number 2, reducing the administrative burdens. Well, now there's no paper submission. So that makes it easier, streamlines it for applicants and also for analysts to just, have everything come in on the portal and be able to review instead of receiving large stacks of paperwork. And there's an initiative to grow the program by 1,000 new 8A firms and increase 8A contracting opportunities. So again, if you can qualify, 8A is a great opportunity for a small business, who is interested in government contracting and also, gaining access to set-asides. So how can your business opportunity specialist help? So basically their responsibility is to assist you in developing the business. And, that can take different forms. Business opportunity specialists are very busy, of course, because they have many 8A firms that they're assigned to, but they can be a real resource to you. Like, for instance, they can initiate search letters. So basically what that is they can send a letter out to an agency and say, I have ABC company and they provide this product or service and and they are capable and qualified and 8A certified, and is this something that you're interested in purchasing? Same thing for a requirement letter. It's a little bit different. A requirement is something that's already out there. There's already a bid opportunity, a project number assigned, for instance, and they would list that particular opportunity and state that we have a qualified 8A firm that can complete this requirement. Would you be, interested? So they're an advocate for you. They also can conduct field visits for business development and counseling. And, again, you would have to talk with your business opportunity specialist probably at your orientation meeting about what that looks like. But those are some of the things that they are able to do. So steps for success. The first thing I always say is knowledge is power, especially in any government contracting. Be familiar with and research the government contracting sites. And if you're not sure which sites you should look at, if you look at a webinar, the first of our series that I did on general certification, at the end of that webinar is a resources and tools slide as there is at the end of this one. And it has some websites that you should be familiar with and where you can research opportunities and basically strategize how you're going to, approach which agencies you should approach, how you can be prepared for opportunities and so forth. So tap into your resources like, for instance, us, the PTAC, as Christina Kunkel mentioned, we can help you with preparing the certification paperwork, help you with research, help you with developing a capability statement, for example. So tap into resources such as us, also the SBDC for general business plans, maybe helping you with QuickBooks, things like that. Tap into those resources, as well as your small business advocates. And again, your business opportunity specialist is your advocate as well. Review subcontracting opportunities on Subnet. There's a link there also on the resources and tools slide, where you can look at opportunities advertised by primes. So primes that may be interested in you working with you because you're very qualified, of course, but also you're 8A certified. Market. That is in our entire series that you want to make sure you market yourself beyond being certified. There's a lot of work to do in order to get a contract. So part of that is attending networking events, making sure you're seen and people know you, trying to get capabilities briefings where you can get in front of a contracting officer or a specialist or a small business specialist to present your capabilities. And the first step to that is making sure you have a proper capability statement. The link here links to a webinar taught by my colleague a few months back on capability statement, and also provides a basic template on how to set that up. However, we can help you at the PTAC, make that more custom for your business and, make it look like, kind of give you some feedback as far as how, to make it look nice and sleek. And prepare. Always prepare as part of knowledge, reviewing forecasts that are posted on the agency websites. I think there's a link also to that on that general certification presentation, and respond to sources sought. So sources sought are when, for instance, a contracting officer is looking for a particular product or service and want to see if there are any small businesses that can qualify, or any 8A firms, hypothetically, that can qualify, can do this work. So make sure you respond to that. It's a way for you to get your information out there, to get known, possibly to get a project set aside for you or sole source to you. So make sure you review sources sought, and those can be found on fbo.gov. Here's the resources and tools slide I've been referring to throughout the presentation. And when you receive this, you can just click on these links and it'll take you right to it. Really important to know for CFR 124, which is basically the rules of the program. And there's a lot of information here, all of what was covered during this webinar. And of course, there are links here to the PTAC and the SBDC. Again, there are resources to help you with questions about this particular webinar, as well as other webinars or other government contracting issues or general business issues with the Small Business Development Center. Here's a list of upcoming workshops and webinars that Christina Kunkel mentioned in the beginning. And first off, in February, end of this month, is how to do business with the state of California. If you haven't attended one of those or you missed it, there are several coming in the next few weeks and next month that you can attend. And then in April, we'll start our virtual skills series, The Rules of Government Contracting. And this will be conducted by Lenny Bean. And part 1 and 2 will be conducted in April. And then there will be announcements. There will be a 4-part series, so 2 other series will be announced at a later date. But those will be webinars, again, on April 4th and April 25th. And that's it. Thank you so much for attending. You'll be sent an evaluation form. If you can complete that and send that back, we would really appreciate it. And now I will take your questions. Let's see. Okay, so I see there were some questions asked during the presentation. There was one, if I'm a white business owner, I do not qualify, right? You're not a member of a presumed group, so you would have to present additional documentation to show that you were discriminated against and that it was not a one-time event, it was something that was chronic. So that is outlined specifically what they're looking for in one of the previous slides. But yes, you may qualify. Right off the bat, you won't qualify, but you may qualify if you can presume that you've been socially disadvantaged. You are socially disadvantaged because of some chronic incidents that happened to you. And the next question is, does a certified disabled veteran qualify? You can. It just depends. A service-disabled veteran is not necessarily a minority or one of the presumed groups. So if you're one of the presumed groups, yes. Same thing with DVBE if you're one of the presumed groups. Otherwise, as I mentioned for the previous question, you would have to basically show that you qualify as socially disadvantaged based on some chronic situation that happened to you that would qualify you as socially disadvantaged. Any other questions? Thank you for joining me. And again, if you think of other questions after the presentation, be in touch with Christina Kunkel and she will get you to either myself or Lenny Bean, and we can help you flush out any other questions you have about the program or any other government contracting issues. Okay, I'm just going to hang out here for a few moments to see if anyone has any questions. Thank you, everyone, for all the thank yous. Oh, sorry. Any other questions? So just a reminder, this is the last of the series on certification that I've taught. There's been 4 different webinars. You can access those if you missed any of them. There was one, the first one was on general certification, and then we moved into HubZone, and then DBE certification, and then this one, which is 8A certification. So all of those can be accessed at Norcal PTAC /webinars. And if you missed any of those or have any questions. All right, well, there doesn't appear to be any more questions. Going once, going twice. So with that, that will be the end of our presentation. Thank you again for joining us. Have a happy Valentine's Day.